Hello Internet, this is Geeks with an update on my thoughts on the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, more specifically the official trailer that was released yesterday. And the official trailer is a little bit mixture of the teaser that we saw last year in December, and the other part is new newly revealed gameplay footage. Like, it's a cinematic, but it's using the in-game engine. So we have a little hints of what should we expect from the game, at least from a visual standpoint. But what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna look more into the details and see if we can't grab anything from the gameplay. Like, can we take a guess at least of what we can expect from the gameplay? Because we already know a few details since the reveal of Skyrim. That there's a few details from interviews and also from the Game Informer articles. About some details, and I'm going to discuss my thoughts on them. Like, I'm bound to forget a lot of information or a lot of detail or a lot of key features. So just take note that what I'm going to talk about is mostly the stuff that I find relevant or that I find interesting, or those that I remember. But that doesn't mean that any other features that I might forget to mention aren't any good or that I don't find interesting. Like, if it's something that even if I don't find it interesting, I'll mention it because it's going to be in the back of my mind and I have to. So there's a lot to talk about just with what was announced before. So let's see if I can't cram it in there in one video. There's. So let's start with the basics. Let's go and see what they announced, like what they talked about before the official trailer came out, as far as like some new features that would make the game different from Oblivion, Morrowind, or even maybe some confirmation on stuff that remains from the previous titles, previous Elder Scrolls. So the first thing I think that comes to mind is the 18 skills and the whole class mechanic, basically. So essentially, when you're going to play Skyrim, or the way they have it planned for now, and I'm assuming that's going to happen, it's going to stay with the game until it's released, is that you pick no class. You're not picking a class. Essentially, you have 18 skills, and as you play, those skills will level up, and those level ups will, it's like, instead of having 7 skills, or how in Oblivion, and whatever the amount was in Morrowind, because you had major skills and minor skills and miscellaneous skills in Morrowind. But anyways, in Oblivion, you had 7 major skills, and those skills allowed you to level up. So instead of those 7s, you'll have those 18. My thoughts on that just alone is awesome. I couldn't be happier, because I thought the whole idea of an archetype, like picking a class and stuff like that, was very passe. It was like very, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's, for lack of a better word, it's pointless. You don't need, especially when you're playing a single player game, you don't need to identify an archetype, and I think that way of thinking about roles and characters that way, for me, was back in when Dungeon Siege came out, like the original Dungeon Siege, where you had a character. I mean, it's nowhere near to the extent that the Elder Scrolls ever was, but or continue to be. But in Dungeon Siege, your class was based on your actions and like how you play the game. So if you were a melee character, well, you were a melee character because you did melee attack, and you became like a gladiator and a soldier and stuff like that based on the level of your melee skill. Now, if you mixed it up with like archery, you became, I don't know, like a hunter. Well, maybe not, no. Hunter would probably be like something that would focus. Maybe a gladiator would be like a mixture of both ranger and melee. Like I never played those two classes, and for me, in Dungeon Siege, it was more like combat magic and nature magic. And if you become, I think both combat and nature, if they were equal in level, you would become a wizard. If not, you were like sorcerer and stuff like that. So for me, that introduced me to concept that you don't need archetypes, you don't need classes. You can just be what. I mean, it's easier to organize it and it's easier to communicate to the player. You're a mage, you cast spells, but I think, I mean, in the Elder Scrolls, especially with Oblivion, I think everybody, or I wouldn't say everybody because I don't do that, but a lot of people would play just as. It's easy to have the tendency to play as a battle mage, so somebody who can fight and cast spells or even sneak. So you have like the archetypes kind of just, there's a huge blur between them. I mean, I like to play like pure classes, like a pure thief or pure mage. Nah, I wouldn't play a warrior, but the Skyrim wouldn't prevent me from doing that. So if I just focus on what I like to do, and it's fine. So I think my first playthrough would probably be, I wouldn't say a mess of a character, would probably be the truest form of what, like the essence of how I like to play games, like a stealth and maybe some magic into that. So whatever character ends up being like, and that's what I like about the idea that Skyrim is, they won't have any classes, and the way they kind of, because if a game just had that, kind of like what the first Dungeon Siege did, there was like a lack of character progression. Of course, you had levels and stuff like that, which it's all superficial. You don't need, that's the word I was looking for before, superficial. You don't need the levels. You could be transparent. It's, progress is measured very weirdly, I guess, if, for lack of a better word. It's just a number. And I think games now, or gamers even, are starting to realize that. As far as I wouldn't say that generally speaking, but I think it's starting to become like not a reality, but it's like, levels don't matter in World of Warcraft as much as they did back when vanilla came out. Now it's all about the items and stuff like that. Everybody's max geared, max level. It's all 85 now, so levels don't matter. Nobody talks about, oh, I was killed by a dude, he was 2 levels above me, it's no fair, blah blah blah. It's just about the gear. And so it's like, it's a different way of measuring progression. And I think if it just had, here's 18 skills, Oblivion style, let's say, and you level up like that, I think character lose some identity. I mean, I just talked earlier about being able to play the character you would like to play, and that's a form of identity, but you lose like the progression of it to a certain extent, especially if I talk about like, you don't need the numbers, you don't need to know that your destruction skill is at 32, stuff like that. So or even your character level. So you need something to measure progression, and the way they do it in Skyrim, or the way they're doing it for their build right now, because it's all subject to change, but I think if they announced it, they're pretty comfortable with their system, so it's pretty much heart and stone. But they're adding feats to those skills. The way they explain it is feats are more like the feats that you find in Fallout 3. Fallout 3, the way they do level ups, I didn't really agree upon. I mean, excuse me, I liked the way they did it for Fallout 3 because it was Fallout. And Fallout, when you level up, you gain points, and you decide on which skills you want to put points, and you select feats. You select. Actually, I think that's a trait. I was gonna say like one-handed. You select, stuff like. Well, in Fallout 3, I like to select like scoundrel stuff, and you had different ranks of scoundrel. I forgot what scoundrel did. I think it improved your sneak and um, maybe barter. But anyways, stealth related stuff. And the way you're going to do it for Skyrim is that when you level up destruction, you'll be able to invest feats. I think it's like each time you level up or something like that, or every 2 level, however they're going to do it, you get to invest on a feat, and the feat can stack up. Let's say pyromancy is one of those feats in the destruction school of magic. That means that it adds more fire damage, or you get like your fire spells, instead of just doing a blast of fire, it burns the target for X amount of seconds. Maybe let's say 10 seconds, the guy's on fire, it's combust. And rank 2, it's more fire, or now it's not just that guy that's on fire, but everybody's on fire, or however they want to do it. That's the type of feat mechanic they're going to do for the game. And apparently, I think they clocked it like at I wouldn't say clocked it, but they counted. I think it's like over 200 feats overall across all the 18 skills. And I think at maximum level you get like, I think maybe one feat per level, so they're going to go like at 50 max. So you have, well, they claim that you have a lot of flexibility, but the way I see it is that, well, you have the flexibility, but I don't think it's as much as people claim it is. Maybe that's just my way of seeing it, but since there's already multiple ranks, and I thought about that earlier, and when they announced that type of information, I'm thinking you had 200, and let's say that each skill or each feat has a minimum of 2 ranks. So that's 100 different feats right there. And then how did I did it? There's 18 skills, so you split that up. Let's say there's 20 skills, so that means that there's 10 feats per skill, basically. So, and then you start breaking it down like that, and you kind of realize that it's not that many. I mean, it's 10 feet. Like now that I say it out loud, 10 feats per like 10 unique feats per skill is it's a decent number, assuming that there's 2 ranks each, and there's probably more. Like for example, Scoundrel can go up to feet like I think it's the max I ever played, because I didn't play Fallout for too long, Fallout 3 or any of the Fallouts, but it goes like maybe I think I upped Scoundrel to like rank 3 or something like that, or a gun. What was the gun attic feat? Like there's a feat called Gun Maniac, or gun related stuff, and you're good with guns and repairing guns, I think, and stuff like that. I forget the details, but you can, it goes like maybe up to rank 4 or 5 or something like that. So when you break it down like that, I mean, it still adds customization, because some characters might not go all the way to those feats and stuff like that. But I wasn't shocked by the news. Oh my God, the 200 feats! It's amazing. For me, it was more like, all right, it sounds reasonable. It's not, I'm not expecting too much out of it. It's a decent amount. It's not bad, and it's not overly amazing. That's the way I see it. And I talked about like how Fallout did it, like with the when you level up, you put invest points and stuff like that. I moved away from that type of gameplay where, oh, I level up, I get to spend a point. I mean, I played Diablo, and I love Diablo, and I complained that in Diablo 3 you won't be able to invest points in like your attributes and stuff like that. But I consider Diablo as a different kind of beast. It's a different game. It's not even an RPG. Then it has RPG elements to it, but the way I like to play RPGs is have it flow. I don't need to have a ding. I don't need to have like special effects when I level up. I don't need to even know that I'm leveling up. I just need to know that, you know, maybe if the characters or like the NPCs around me would recognize, oh, I'm getting better. I think that's just enough for me. The way that Skyrim is doing it, well, we don't know how it's going to announce. Maybe the screen goes completely white, and you go blind for a few seconds. Oh my God, I just leveled up. Who knows? But at least the way the customization works, I think it's as natural as you can get, and still make it look like a game. Because you don't want it to look too much like a simulation either. So yeah, you have to have that monetary elements to your skills. You have to be able to strategize it in a way like, okay, here's a spreadsheet. I'm going to spend my points here, 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 here. You kind of do that in Oblivion. You kind of do that in Morrowind to some extent, but it's all about like which skill do you use, how do you play it, and how do you think in your process about the skills. Where in Skyrim it's trying to make that more transparent, so the feats will add up to it, and I think it's a really cool idea. Another thing about the 18 skills, it's less than what we had in Morrowind. I think Morrowind had maybe 23, 26-ish. I didn't count, but I think Oblivion has maybe 19 to 20. So it definitely has a lot less skills, but I think with the feats, and I think they're just mainstreaming it. It's kind of, people probably gonna cry foul when they know, like, well, we already know that mysticism is removed from the game. The school of mysticism is removed. Their reasoning was because it was redundant to say the magical school of mysticism. I say BS to that, but still, whatever. I mean, but what I was going at with the skills is that the amount of is that people crowd foul in Oblivion when they remove like medium armor and like not blunt but axes. They're considered like blunt weapons, and people are like, oh my God, you can't do that. Well, the way they're going to do it for Skyrim is you're still going to have like the blade and the blunt, but within blunt you'll have specialization to say axes, or in swords you'll have daggers. Guess what I'm going to put points into. So you'll be able to differentiate yourself from a regular blade wearer, and I'm thinking it's also kind of cool because if you find that sword, like let's say I invest, like I play the game and I invest points in the dagger skill, I'll be able to maybe do more backstabs and stuff like that. Whatever the dagger is good for, which they change in Skyrim, which I'll talk about later in a little bit. But if I find a sword, I'm not, what's the word, gimping myself. Like I'm not sacrificing a huge amount of my progress just for that one sword, because I can still use it. My skill in blade is still high enough. Of course, I sacrificed some dagger feats, but it doesn't, because I'm bound to find another dagger at some point. So it balances out, and I think it's more of a gradual progression to the way you handle weapons and wield them and stuff like that. So in blunt or in blades, you'll be able to have specialize in two-handed weapons and what kind maybe. So there's some variation in there, and I really like that. Even though I said that it was not an underwhelming amount of feats, but it's a decent amount of feats. Nothing to go oh my God about. Now, another thing I wanted to mention, the lack of mysticism. They confirmed that the skills, they didn't say which skills, like the spell effects, I should say, of mysticism, they're going to be spread around the various other skills, 18 skills. Maybe not all the 18, probably just the magic-centric ones. I'm assuming like stuff like Soul Trap will go in like Conjuration. think it makes sense considering that conjuration can also turn undead, you know, because it handles. Like it's not even necromancy at that point, so they could probably, you know, uh, well, they confirmed it that they spread it around like the spells looks. And no, the question is whenever or not they re-included levitation into the mix. Is telekinesis is going to be any good in this game? And I'm thinking yes. I'm hoping yes, because telekinesis, as fun as it was, I used it as a thief, but how much fun would it be to just pick up a crate? And I know it's a pure gimmick, but pick up a crate and throw at somebody and kill him with it. Kind of like what Dark Messiah of Might and Magic did. Of course, in Dark Messiah Might and Magic, you could pick up like a penny and it would kill somebody, because that was the gimmick of the game. You know, throw stuff; it's overpowered. And there was like spiked walls all over the place. So you can just kick an enemy in the in the spikes to kill him. Like it wasn't balanced for it. It was just to show that you can do it, and there's the first game for it. But like maybe you can do that in a similar fashion with Skyrim, not in a way like make it a gimmick, but make it an interesting, make the mage like the spells, like even if you're a thief and you can go, ooh, I'm using the Schwartz, I say that because I think they emphasize, like in Spaceballs, they emphasize more on the ability to move objects with your mind. They do it in Star Wars as well, but anyways, not as much I think, except for lightsabers and whatever. It's the same thing. I'm rambling. Now let's see. So I talk about the skills. I've talked about. That's pretty much all I talked about right now. So let's see, skill-wise, they improved. I'm gonna go back to what I mentioned about daggers. That's one thing I'm really excited about. They talked about, I think, rebalancing some of the weapons. Daggers were always in the Elder Scrolls, at least in Oblivion. I'll limit myself to just that game because that's the only one I really know. Daggers were more like a poor man's sword, where it's a short sword. It attacks faster, but it has a short range and very little amount of damage, unless you had one of those Menrune's razors and stuff like that, where that could banish, or like I like to call it, like one hit kill people. There was no real point to using a dagger because it was using the same skill blade as a sword. And so if you found a sword that was, automatically by the whole principle that it's a sword, it's better than a dagger. The way they do it in Skyrim, and I'm really excited for that, is that they actually put it, not necessarily like feats for it, but they're doing it so that when you use a dagger, especially for stealth characters, like say a thief or an assassin, you get more bonuses out of stealth for it. So let's say back in Oblivion, archery and backstabs. When you do archery, a sneak attack was 3 times the normal amount of damage if you were above novice in the skill, because I think below that is just like two times the amount of damage. Now, for melee weapons, like when you do a backstab with like a dagger or any blade that was a one-hander, I think you did 6 times the amount of damage. Excuse me. And they're probably going to do the same thing, except for daggers. I think the number right now is 10 times the amount of damage, and that gets me pretty excited because it gives me a reason to, play the way I wanted to play. And if somebody else saw me play, I wouldn't look like a weirdo. Like, oh, why are you using a dagger? It's like, oh, you're using a dagger. Oh, you're awesome. Well, maybe not that, but it's not. I mean, I know like a lot of people watch me play, like for example, my Let's Play videos, and they congratulate me on some awesome Let's Play, and the way that I play, like I role play, and yeah, I use a dagger just for like poison stuff like that. But you know, I never really get credit for. Um, I don't power game, but I never get the credit of being able to, um, you know, playing it smart, I guess. And I think that's one way to make it natural for me and be able to get something out of it, where to say, okay, it's a viable way of fighting to use a dagger. So I'm really excited about that. Because in Oblivion, when you stealth, the main tool is the bow and arrow, and it's really hard to pull off a melee attack with a stealth character, especially with the way you consider them. You basically have to mainly focus on your blade skill, get that up in Oblivion to make it feasible, to make it work. So it's not natural. That's the way I want to put it. Um, let's see. What else is there? Another main element. Yeah, I'm drinking Pepsi. Another main element to Skyrim, which is very different from any other Elder Scrolls, I guess, from what I know, anyways, is dual wielding. Well, they say dual wielding, but there has to be a better name for that, because it's single wielding, but you use two hands. It's basically you're allowed to put any one-handed weapon on both hands, in the sense that I could use a sword or two swords, or I can have maybe two shields. I don't know, like super block. But you can have like two spells, one on each hand, frost and fire, for example. You could have. They showed in the trailer, and I'm gonna show it to you in a moment. They showed like what looked like a staff or maybe a wand and a sword, so you can go all Gandalf on on these monsters. So you have a lot of flexibility, and I don't know how that's gonna, maybe left click, right click type of thing, kind of like what the block did with in Oblivion. So who knows? But yeah, are you going to be able to blend in combined spells? Like if you cast fire and cold at the same time, how would it happen? Like, would it do anything different? Will it go with steam? Like I'm thinking, like a Magicka. Will it work like that? I doubt it. I don't think you'll be able to. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack. Probably people is gonna say it. No, I'm wrong, because they did mention it in an interview. But I don't think you'll be able to cast both spells at the same time. It's probably gonna go like ta combo, and at the same time, I think they're removing. And again, like my memory's kind of shot right now, but I think they're removing also magic crafting from the game. They're adding more stuff to the crafting system, but I think magic, like spell making, is out of the game, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a variation of it, but just the fact that you're able to have a silence on one hand and like a fire on the other or something, just that in itself, being able to do this, is kind of powerful already. It's kind of having it's like one spell with two effects, kind of. I think the only thing that I would regret is that if you have a silent spell, there's no way to make it like a range attack, or between, like, as opposed to a touch spell kind of thing. So I'm thinking maybe there's a flexibility in the crafting to be able to do that, but I don't think you'll be able to mix up spells. I'm most likely wrong on that, but that's the interpretation that I get from what they explain on the dual wielding thing. It would be kind of cool though to have, like, well, there's probably some unique animations for dual wielding. maybe with also different types of weapons. Like if I'm doing wielding, let's say an axe and a dagger, it's like and then chop. I don't know, like two different types of style. I hope the animation is gonna look good. So far, from what we've seen, it looks pretty good. Um, what else is there? What else? I'm thinking like the old news. I'm trying to catch up, give you guys an update, not necessarily for to inform you guys, but more about sharing my thoughts and ideas on what I've learned. Um, what else is there? There's so much. The interface. The interface is clean. I like that. Um, shouldn't go too wrong with the interface on this time. But I'm kind of worried a little bit to some extent. There is no HUD display, which is fantastic. I love that. And the health bars and mana bars and stuff like that, compass, will probably show up. Well, they mentioned that like stuff with it's all contextual. So if you're hurt and you're in combat, it'll probably like the health bar is going to show up and stuff like that. What happens at like there's a whole logic on when it's going to show up and when it's going to hide from your view. So when you're just out exploring into the world, like the forest and stuff like that, it's just going to be one huge canvas of the environment. There's we haven't seen any cursors yet in like screenshots and gameplay footage. So I'm thinking, as far as that goes, maybe that's going to be the new combat music thing, where you knew in Oblivion that you were in combat because of two things. Either the eye was yellow, but mainly it's the combat music that you hear in advance. Like you're looking for the monster, most likely a rat or a wolf, but you're looking for the monster that's attacking you. Just because there is a music, there's no surprise to it. And I'm thinking the moment you see like the crosshair, it's like, oh, I'm in combat. Maybe that'll happen. And if it did, at least it's a subtle way to saying like, watch out. Something's. It's like a spider sense or something like that. It's not like in your face, you're being attacked. Here's some epic music. So, what I'm kind of wondering about concerning the HUD display is that I'm pretty sure they're going to add like a compass again, because they had it in Oblivion, they had it in Daggerfall, they had it in Morrowind. I didn't even mention them in order, but anyways, they all had compasses, and I'm thinking they had different functions. How are you going to do that with like the when is it going to show up? What's the logic behind I'm going to show you the compass? Or is it always going to be on? No, it's not, because they specifically mentioned that all the HUD is going to disappear. So maybe it's going to show up just briefly when you gain quests. You're going to hear like you've accepted a quest, and then the compass is going to say it's that away, and then it clears out, it disappears once you start moving or something like that. So I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do with it. Maybe the compass is not going to work at all as a quest marker. Probably they may have learned from their mistakes, and that's one way. Like it's easy to just think about, the HUD's going to disappear, and it's just contextual. It's going to show up when it needs to, but when does it consider it being a need to show you the information? Like, what's the gameplay behind it? I'm hoping it's subtle, that not too like in your face. Yeah, we have a compass. Here it is. I enjoyed the compass in Oblivion, mainly because I was able to ignore the quest markers. I know there's a few tricks where you could select a quest that you weren't going to do, and it's always going to point in that direction. Sometimes it just disappears. It doesn't select any quest, and then you're like, don't touch it, because otherwise you'll have the quest marker. But that never really bothered me. The compass showed, like, it highlighted some so, like, for me it was like stuff to explore. Like if I'm wandering around the dungeons because I'm looking like I'm exploring, right? And then it shows, oh, there's a dungeon over here. Here's something you could do. It's like, all right, cool, go in, explore, stuff like that. And I've done a little bit of that even in the Oblivion Let's Play that I've been doing. Whenever I need to kill time, I just look at the compass and I see like a little icon there. Oh, there's a ruin. Let's go in. And I like that. And I'm thinking now that with the compass, what they're going to do is whenever you come to an area and you're near a dungeon, instead of having the different color codes from a distance, the compass is just gonna, there's something around you that you could explore, and then you look at the compass and there it is. And then after a few seconds it just fades out. I think that would be a reasonable way to do it without having it constantly on, without telling you like all the time that it would be one of those things though that I hope there's an option to turn that off at the same times, because when I think about it, it would annoy some people because there's a difference between having a constant compass with a bunch of icons constantly 24/7 running around. You learn to, okay, there's a compass there, I don't need to look at the icons, and I can explore and ignore the compass. But when something is invisible and then suddenly it shows up, then you notice it and you say there's something here. And that might bother some people because it's just going to remind them that the game found something for them or something. Double-edged sword. So I'm really curious on how they're going to pull that off. Another thing about the interface is that they only mentioned PS or console controls, but if you press up on the D-pad, you look up at the sky. I'm assuming like in first person, you're just the camera's gonna shift up, and you're looking at the sky, and you see Constellation, which are your skills, and you can move. You can navigate through your skills like iTunes app would be like. Like cover flow and stuff like that in iTunes. When you have you see all the album covers, and all the other ones are in angle until it goes like side by side like this, and then it goes, and then you flip through them. It's going to look like that, and it seems a little weird to have that. I'm really hoping that they're nailing it perfectly, because it's one thing to say, oh, we all, we were wondering what if Apple did an RPG, Apple Computers, a company, and how would it look like? How would it function? They don't make games, and they do make interfaces, and they do make really good ones. But do we need that? And is it going to be more for those console players? Because nothing beats a good point and click with a mouse. Now the computer PC version will probably have a mouse that you'll be able to navigate, but I think a list at that point is more optimized for the PC. So I don't know about that just yet. It looks good though. It looks pretty. It feels more immersed. So maybe I'll like it. That's probably something that I'll have to reserve my judgment for now. And when I play it, I'll be able to fully realize, okay, this is how it works, and okay, I'm comfortable with it, and it looks cool with either the effects, like the transition between looking in the game and then looking up in your interface and stuff like that. So you have up is your skills. It's about your character traits and stuff like that. And I think down is the map, so the camera shifts down and then it zooms out, and you have your world map. Fast travel still in the game, no complaints there. And I think like on one of the sides you have your inventory, and with the inventory you can hotkey some favorites, which I think that's pretty cool, because as much as I'm quick with the inventory system, relatively quick with the inventory system as far as like switching between bows and arrows. You had like 8 hotkeys to switch skills in Morrowind, in Oblivion, 9 in Morrowind, or maybe even 10 is the hand-to-hand. But excuse me. I'm thinking, with favorites, you could say, well, I could. There's more choices. Like there's more slots to do it. Because it's the list, and I think you can have like as many favorites as you want. I think that's how so you pop a button and you see a list, and then because the interface appears on your screen, you see a list like in combat, and you select. And maybe it pauses the game too. I don't know about that one. I think it would be cool if the game still played while you're, because it's kind of like you're shuffling between your items and stuff like that. What else is there? Combat, when you're using, at least when you're using a bow and arrow. I don't know if it does that overall, but you can't run backwards as fast as you used to in Oblivion, so that'll be a disadvantage. So hit and runs won't be as easy in the Skyrim. I think that's a good thing, especially considering that they're balancing the bow and arrow so that one or two arrows will probably kill your opponent this time instead of the Oblivion pincushions that we get. And I think that's one of the things that kind of turned me off about marksmanship in Oblivion. Like I like bow and arrows in general. Maybe not my first pick for a weapon, but it's still a very sleek, it's very ingenious design. I think it's like it feels complex, and it's like you're badass when you do it. But die. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. He's like headshot and he's dead. Which brings me to another point. Will there be contextual hit detection? If I hit the head, is he gonna die? If I hit an elbow, is that arm going to be paralyzed? Like if he has a shield there, or if he has a spell, will that nullify the spell in a way that he won't be able to use it completely? Or if he has a shield there and we hit him in the arm, will that prevent him to, like, will that reduce his effectiveness to block? He could still block, but he doesn't absorb like 50% of the damage. He'll only absorb 25 or something. How is that going to work? Like, first of all, is it going to work? And we'll be able to, can we like VATS it in Fallout 3? Can we pick, not necessarily pause a game and pick it, but can we say, oh, we're going to aim at the foot, and then, because it did it in Fallout with the VAT system, but if they turn that into real time, we might be able to get that actually. So that would be a good advantage as for an archer to say, you know what, I'm not using like your sword and shield and to bash the guy's skull. I'm gonna, take the time to, and that's another thing, it takes longer to draw your arrows. I'm gonna take the time and, he's running at me, but you know what, there's the foot, oh, he's crippled. Okay, now I have more time. Okay, there we go. Here's the head, yep, and he's dead. 2 hits, he's gone. See, that would be very, I was gonna say very awesome, but it would be nothing less of amazing in a combat system for bows. I think that would really help those archer, I was going to say wannabes, but those that aspire to be like pure archer classes without relying on hit and run tactics, which was pretty cheap in Oblivion at least. I don't think any game pulls that off correctly. Maybe Mountain Blade Warband, but that game's hard to use. Like I have problems playing it just because I can't. I understand how the controls work, I just can't execute them. So, but yeah, that would be awesome. Let's see. What else have we learned off of the thinking here? There's a lot to talk about. I just can't put my finger on a specific subject. Here's a big one. I kind of pushed it off the side because the way I see it, I already understand the concept, and I just I understand this. Let's put it aside and let's look for something else to delve into and understand. Basically, it's a new puzzle. I fixed that puzzle, but what do they call it? Radiant Story, which is a variation on their Radiant AI. Basically, yes, it's more scripting. Excuse me. People were concerned initially when they announced that was going to add like random questing and stuff like that, and people didn't want that. They wanted handcrafted quests, and Bethesda already confirmed that all the quests are handcrafted. But there are some elements with the way that the Radiant story works is that it just structures quests. So it's a system for them to code in quests. Not only that, but they can add more parameters so that if the quest is altered in a way, like they can dynamically alter the quests based on your actions within the game. Not necessarily, they don't have to think of all the possibilities. They can just say this happens, and the game kind of figures out, okay, we're gonna fix it this way. We're gonna pull that quest in this direction now because you did some other thing, and it won't break the game. A good example for that is in Morrowind and Oblivion. Well, in Oblivion they kind of fixed the problem with like badly, but I'll go through. I'll focus on Morrowind and explain what they did with Oblivion. In Morrowind, you could kill anybody, and if you killed a quest NPC, well, you're screwed. Even before you got the quest. Let's say you killed a guy for the Mages Guild quest line, and you're not a mage yet, and you want to be a mage. Well, you're screwed. Well, probably not. Like I don't know Morrowind that well, but I do know that a lot of people are kind of like they send me a lot of advice concerning, oh, watch out, if you do this then you're locked out of that quest, or if you do this you might not be able to finish the main quest because that happened, or you killed this guy, or you got kicked out of the guild and now you won't be able to come back in, or this guy won't like you and stuff like that. Well, they kind of fixed that in Oblivion in a way that most quest givers can't die. Well, that's kind of boring, So, and there's no way that they could make it so that if a quest giver dies, then it's like game over, try again, reload the game. No. What they're gonna do, and with the Radiant AI is that, or Radiant story, is that, well, you kill that guy, but there's, I wouldn't say thousands, but there's hundreds of NPCs, other NPCs that could fill the role. So it delegates, it restructures the quests so that when you get it, it still makes sense for your character. So I'm assuming that every character is going to be killable, and it relieves a lot of tension or mystery. Well, not mystery, but worry that, oh, I don't want to kill him. I just because it might ruin something later on. Like like they say, if you move something, a little whistle over here or something, and it moves something over here. So you don't have to worry about that. It's more like do what's more intuitive, what's more like instinctive, and if that guy happens to die, then you know what? You're fine. Your game is okay, even for a completionist. The way I see it is that, the example that they gave was more like if there's a shopkeeper and he ends up dying at one point, you still get his quests through his daughter or sister or something. Well, it doesn't have to be a girl, but it's another NPC within that family. Maybe it's just an apprentice who becomes the blacksmith now, and he can give you the quest depending on if you meet their requirements. Like if this disposition might be different because it's a totally new character, new personality, so you might have to work a little bit harder to get the quest now, but it's there. And the only way that you wouldn't be able to get the quest is if you kill that guy too, and then you keep killing people until there's nobody around. So the Radiant story basically restructures the quests so that your game is not broken. And do I like that? Hell yeah. But to come back to the randomness, I'm a sucker for randomized content. I think it adds a lot of, well, randomization. It adds a lot of mystery to a game where anything can happen, and I love that. It's one of the reasons why I'm attached to Diablo series, because random dungeons, not so much in Diablo 3, not as much in Diablo 3, so they say, but I really love randomized content. Normally when there's a game with randomized content, I jump on it. Daggerfall is apparently randomized content. I didn't know about that. Well, I know now because I'm talking, but I think it's randomized content because I heard that a couple of times. Um, and you know, if they could, like, if they had a game, it has to be well made. But if there was a game that had everything randomized, from the NPCs' names to the NPCs' stats to the look of the NPCs to the quests to um, like maybe a little even in the combat, the dungeons, the terrain, like even the overworld and the towns. If those were randomly generated every time you loaded a game, wow, I would like it would have to be done perfectly though, because the problem with randomized content is that it's hard to pull off in a good way, and but it's not that. But if Skyrim was like this, I would I would be shouting at the screen right now, just in excitement. It's like, oh my god, it's gonna be randomized content. I know a lot of people don't like that, and I think they know that a lot of people don't like that, and I don't think we're ready for fully randomized content. Uh, Technology wise, I mean, it would be hard to pull off. And the way they do it right now, it's, you know, let's see, what else do I want to talk about? There's so many things.